Welcome to RSA Conference 2023. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview was sponsored by Direct Defense. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me for this interview is Jim Broome, President and Chief Technology Officer for Direct Defense. Welcome, Jim.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And today we are talking about MsSP'S. And that has been that's just been a lightning market for the last decade or so. Like we've seen so many MsSP'S pop up. We've seen consolidation in that area. You know, the podcast that I run, Enterprise Security Weekly, follows a lot of the funding and a lot of the acquisitions. And every week there's like 5 or 6. Like some of them are in very niche markets, right? Like there's a lot of regional MsSP'S. But every week, 4 or 5 of them get swept up, you know, and pulled into some larger MsSP organization. What do you think has driven this huge boom in MsSPs, and now we have terms like MDR?
Yeah.
You know, what do you think has driven this?
Honestly, again, at the end of the day, it's going to be about availability of talent. Depending on whose stats you're looking at, we're roughly nearly 1 million short here in the United States alone, and globally, are nearly 3.3 million. So a lot of organizations are just struggling to meet the actual operational state of monitoring their security on a day-to-day basis. More importantly, like in the last couple of years, we've asked more and more of our CISOs. And so it really becomes a dollar and cents investment from the CISO perspective of, is that CISO going to be able to actually accomplish their strategic goals? Will they be able to actually have the operational state they need to maintain at the same time, and do they have the budget for it? And so that's really what's driving that need of, here's some really good technology, solves your visibility stories, but on top of that, it actually gives you the capability of actually, having an organization, quote unquote, partnering and having your back during that time.
So it's kind of an agility thing with the security program. Like you want to add a function to your security program, you could either spend 6 months going out and trying to hire and build a team. Well, and I say 6 months, people are probably laughing at that and saying, yeah, more like 18, or, is the CISO even going to still be there, by the time that team is put together?
Thankfully, that's lessening, but yeah.
It is going down. It's or lengthening,
correct.
Is the right way to say it. How do you go about, there's so many MsSPs out there. Some of them are kind of niche and focus on, maybe they just do SIEM or they just manage your firewalls. And then some do many things.
Correct.
So how do you even, as a buyer, how do you shop this market?
Exactly. I mean, it's a great question. I tease when I'm doing some of the sales conversations. MDR is the new buzzword term, managed detect and response, and I tease that it's like the old term DLP. You ask 40 vendors, you're going to get 40 different answers and 40 different approaches. So first and foremost, like what makes us unique compared to a lot of our competitors out there, for ourselves, our service was actually grown out of direct demand. We are actually a very large penetration and testing shop, so mostly offense. That's actually my background of 30 plus years of doing that. And when our customers would have an event, because about the second year of being in business, ransomware became a thing. Teasingly, as the snarky pen tester, not everybody follows the recommendations, so they may have had an event and they needed help getting the bad guy out. So that was our first managed service, was managed IR. Yeah. Then the second part.
Eradication, we would say.
Exactly.
Incident responders, that we think of that as the eradication step.
Correct. Right? And then, from there.
Containment and eradication.
Yep. And then from there, actually retooling the organization post-event and getting them back online and, really solving those visibility stories. And so for us, that's kind of where our service came from, is our customers like, you did such a good job, why don't you just do this?
Yeah.
And so, we went out, we looked at a few vendor partners that gave us the visibility that as attackers we were comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then more importantly, we started building our service around there. So, directly to the point of how do we really actually start, solving some of those problems and getting that visibility for folks. And that's there is a lot of niche players out there. But, with that in mind, it's like, there is a broader market of being able to take care of, middle market customers all the way up to large enterprise customers. And then most recently, we've added some more uniqueness for our own flavor of actually OT visibility. So we're partnered with like SCADA Defense and Clarity.
Okay.
And now actually getting into not only the traditional utility space, but a lot of manufacturing partners that we work with on a day-to-day basis. So it's an interesting challenge.
You hit on something interesting there. It's one of the big challenges, I think, for a security vendor especially, is how do you build that trust with the customer?
Exactly.
How do you, and I remember back in the early days of EDR, one of the things Carbon Black did is they started giving it away for free.
Correct.
To different consulting practices, with the idea that, like, the consultants can use it for free for that containment and eradication, and maybe they just want to leave it there, and they end up buying it and keeping it. So I think that you described using consulting services to sell MSSP services, which I think is a great opportunity for somebody to try you out before buying you. Right?
Yeah. I mean, don't want everybody to come to us with an incident, but we're there to hold their hand during that process and get them through that. But yeah, I mean, in essence, going through a POC, showing that the technology works. But in our case, again, we are highly consultative in our approach, mainly because of our background. So while we're also doing operational state with a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 SOC offering, we're also being very consultative. So by the time that we're done with the engagement, we're communicating with the client daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, all the way up to the point where we're actually having conversations at the C-suite of, this is working really well for you, what's not, let's solve those problems, because it's all about service and making sure the customer is happy.
Yeah.
And then the secondary challenge is at that point you really start building that rapport of you really are invested. We overly abuse the term partner sometime in the industry from a marketing standpoint, but we truly do embrace it. We like to say we have a white glove service, and that is our approach. We do some of the things that make us unique in the offering, which makes it a challenge, but when we took on the challenge is we have custom alerts. We do custom playbooks on those alerts, and we do custom responses depending on their needs.
Right.
So it's not just the traditional cookie cutter, what you see is what you get. So again, customers really seem to resonate on the fact that we're really there and then invested in their program. Yeah,
and detection engineering, that's something that's really hard to build and hire for as well. Like that's a very specialized skill. So do you have cases where organizations have some of what they need and they're using you to kind of fill in the gaps? Like maybe they've got, you're talking about the different tiers of a SOC. Like they've got enough people to operate part of that, but maybe they want you to filter out, like if we think of it as a funnel, right? Maybe they want to use you to just handle the top of funnel stuff, so that only the more important things come to their analysts.
In essence, you're a workforce multiplier.
Right.
You're there to actually help them handle the daily deluge of triage. Depending on, again, there's a lot of stats out there, but
whereas I imagine some customers you're doing all of it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Smaller customers, they're really looking for you to handle the majority of the lion's share of the work. Those larger enterprises that have a little bit more headcount, then we can actually let the CISO instruct them on what he needs to do or they need to do to actually get their strategic initiatives done.
Right.
And we're there for operation state, so handling the day-to-day noise, taking care and then making decisions on their behalf. And then when there needs to be their side of the equation, we're passing that over to them in either an accelerated form or just a simple email ticketing process that they handle. Good news is we both get measured in that scenario. So our CISOs love to see not only how fast we do things, but also how long it takes their team to do things, because it helps build that story of we're doing, we're working collaboratively together, and here's how much volume we're handing, we're taking care of, but there's still some left over for your team to go do.
Yeah. Now MDR, where did this term come out of? Like it. I've never had this fully explained to me, but the way it hit me is like, you're just saying you do a specific type of MSSP, whereas MSSP is more of a...
it was part of the conversation. We are an enterprise MDR provider. When you go down the rabbit hole of making sure you're comparing apples to apples on service level, there is a lot of vendor partners that just went out there and just managed the antivirus. And so they pretty much have the story.
Or firewalls.
Or firewalls. Or in essence, they're looking for very, very niche things. They're looking for just malware events, or the one that makes all the news is ransomware.
So if I have a Venn diagram, does the MDR bubble fit entirely inside the MSSP bubble?
Semantically, you can distill it down. It really depends on what your go-to-market service is. There's a lot of different models out there.
Yeah, like some are paired with, CrowdStrike has MDR, but you would specifically use that with just, they don't support. Their MDR doesn't support Sentinel-1, right?
Correct. Or even doubling down on that. We have customers that have Falcon Complete. Now, CrowdStrike is a partner of ours. But at the same time, with Falcon Complete, they have their own Overwatch service, their own SOC, and then we work in conjunction. So when you think about the, who's responsible, RACI diagram, we're the first one that gets called from, the Overwatch team. And then we add more context because they may or may not have seen the authentication event that allowed this to come in, or the email event, through a proof point, or abnormal security visibility story, because they don't have that. We do. We have the the SIM that has all that information as well as the EDR information.
And your customers, do you find is a big piece of it that white glove service? Is it important to your customers that they can meet with you in person or something like that? Do you have? Are you very regionally weighted in your customer base, or do you have global?
It's we're here in the U.S., but we have customers that have our largest client has over 29 points of presence around the globe. So you can't just say anything that logged in from Russia. Throw an alert. That's not going to be their profile.
Right.
But no, we really do believe in the collaboration. Like one of the bigger struggles, as I mentioned before, is that we do that custom alert, that custom playbook, and the custom response for the clients. Is how do you scale that in a SOC? So like one of the challenges we had, being a nerd myself, like how are we going to make this work across multiple SOC analysts and really, build a rail system for them to be very consistent from client to client as I onboard more, analysts working on my team. And so we actually built a platform called Threat Advisor. It's our case management platform that, each customer can go in there, have a base set of rules. They can actually set the priority on which one of those are. They can tell us what the work instructions are going to be. And then from there, we can encapsulate it into the platform. So as the events come in, the analysts are already seeing what the customer wanted us. And we actually average about an 18% variance of client A to client B on the same alerts. So you can kind of just, operationally, it is a challenge to kind of keep tabs on that. And so we've spent a lot of time building our case management platform, and then we actually added SOAR features for our process. Because when you talk about the SOAR market, the automation market, usually it's down there at the SIM, at the customer side, but service providers have our own needs for ticket enrichment, automatic response, and so forth. And so we
anywhere
built that
you have
platform.
an analyst sitting,
exactly,
like you have an opportunity to
automate
address
about half their job. Yeah,
I like to call it the tabs problem. You can reduce 30 tabs for an investigation down to 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, when Chrome is sitting at 16 gigs of memory. So,
there's an opportunity to bring that. Like even just, I remember how thrilled I was as an incident responder and an analyst to get reverse DNS lookups on an IP. Something as simple as that. Like I would constantly have a command line open, just NS lookup, NS lookup, NS lookup.
Exactly. Yeah. Or just VT.
It's the little things.
Give me the hashes automatically. I've got everything that the internet knows about this before I actually start doing, digging into it.
So what are some of the considerations on hiring an MSSP to do something versus hiring somebody internally? Like for you guys to be successful, is there like a key role in the security within the security organization that you need there for you guys to be able to do your job well? Like when you see this role, you're like, perfect. I know we can do well because we've got, somebody who's a dedicated liaison, or like who is typically your main point of contact there? What do you need on the customer side for your services to be successful?
On the customer side, it's usually we need that point of contact. It's probably the CISO's right-hand person. The next manager's down.
Like a chief of staff or something?
Or director of operations, those levels, depending on how mature and how much staff the organization actually has. That's usually our primary point of contact. But as an example, with the OT monitoring services, we're actually working with production in that assembly line or that visibility story, and talking to plant managers. Where we're actually doing not only just the day-to-day, but also doing the incident response side of things. So again, it's usually part of the team, but again, SMB, with mid-market clients, they maybe have a dude or a person that's in charge of all the things that is security. So that's your primary point of contact, or the president of the company in some cases. So,
And do you have a sense for what the cost efficiency usually is for a company, using an MSSP versus hiring internal or something like that? Like, is part of that decision just the agility, the fact that you can very quickly add, capability, scale versus saving costs?
Sure. I mean, let's be honest. We're here in the United States at a trade show, but unilaterally, most employment laws are pretty consistent across the world. To run a 7x24, 365 operation, you need at least 12 to 15 people. Period. Just in one SOC to actually handle that on a day-to-day basis. Now scale that across multiple. So, do you have budget to hire 10 to 15 people? That's the first question.
And manage all of them.
Exactly. Well, then add layers. So yeah, I mean, there's several studies out there that basically kind of give you a dollar sign that to start a SOC tomorrow, you need $1.5 to $10 million in budget, depending on what you're trying to do. And that's just to answer the red light that flashes at 2 o'clock in the morning. Not to do anything else, but other than wait for the red light to flash.
Yeah.
And so most organizations really are constrained, especially right now with the economy the way it is, to really kind of look at a partner to do that for them. That's just get Series state SOC services. We're doing tier 1, tier 2, and just analyzing and making decisions on your behalf to let your staff go back to do what you actually needed them to do. They don't need to sit there and wait for the red light to flash. They can rely on us to handle that for them, and then more importantly, they can chew us out.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it rarely ever happens, but at the same time we're there to actually be that first buffer. Get that visibility story for them, and then it kind of goes from there on. When you talk about MDR, the next part is responding. Do you have someone staffed 7x24 to do something?
Yeah.
When the red light flashes off, what are you going to do? And so, we're there as that response component, and that may be very simplistic, and I use that with air quotes. Using the EDR model, plucking an infected computer off the network, or resetting someone's credentials at 2 o'clock in the morning because they're now logging in places they never lived or worked at.
Yeah.
All the way up to, kind of coming back to OT, things that directly impact productivity.
Yeah.
Some of our vendor partners are so far behind because of the pandemic that they're actually trying to solve immediate visibility stories, specifically around anything that would cause an outage. That actually a CISO gets a phone call. So we're there as part of that chain as well.
Awesome, good stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jim. And to find out more about Direct Defense, please visit securityweekly.com/Direct Defense RSAC. And if you can't stick around for the rest of the live stream, or if you're catching this afterwards, head over to securityweekly.com/RSAC to find all of the RSA conference coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks.